that growth at all cost mentality and treating people like objects, you are not going to get the most out of people. They know they're being treated like an object. They are just a way of getting something done to serve somebody else.
Not everyone makes the news, but behind every growth-driving experience, product, and transformation are experts who shape the outcome. Welcome to Behind the Growth, a podcast for digital leaders and those aspiring to become one. Each episode features a candid conversation with a remarkable individual. Join us as we focus on their struggles, wins, and lessons learned you won't find anywhere else. Let's get started.
Welcome to Behind the Growth. I'm your host, Mudassir Malik, and today we're celebrating Lisa Sharapata, CMO, Arbinger Institute, and one of my favorite marketing leaders. Lisa, it's great to have you on the show and super excited about the chat.
Thanks for having me, Mudassir. It is great to be here, and I'm so glad that you're doing this. It's exciting.
Awesome. So, are you settled? Are you enjoying the new city? I'm sure you're enjoying the warmer winters, but how's it going?
Yeah. So, we moved from Chicago to Charlotte in July. So it's been a little over 6 months. I feel like things are coming together, and almost every day I check the weather back in the Midwest and I think about how fortunate I am to be in a warmer climate. That was one of the big reasons for the move. So it's been great.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm already feeling that you made a better decision. But Lisa, let's get started. I think everyone would love to know your career journey and more recently, what motivated you to join Arbinger? So talk to us about it.
Well, how far back should I go, Mudassir?
Yeah, I think, you've got a great background of how you've been building up your career. I've been part of your journey for a couple of years now. I think you're so intentional. It was so beautifully crafted, and how you kind of motivated yourself in a very, very clear line of direction for yourself. So, a couple of years down the line and just a broader build-up would be great.
Yeah, I'll go way back and I'll say I started in graphic design, and that was more intentional because I wanted to be an astronaut, and pretty quickly realized after a trip to space camp that I'd begged to do for like 8 years that I wasn't cut out for that line of work. So it was my fallback. I switched from physics to design in high school and ended up in a graphic design program and pursued that for quite some time. But I pretty quickly realized that I'm a big form follows function. I like to ask the question why a lot. I want to understand my audience, the strategy. Why are we doing this? What are we trying to accomplish with the work? It wasn't just to be a work of art. It was marketing. And so that is kind of what ended up getting me into a position where I started to take over demand gen strategies. I started to get really involved with the field and sometimes shadowing. Before like Gong was a thing and you couldn't really listen to calls, I would beg to be on calls. I would, find a way to really understand the audience, their pain points, what they cared about. And ultimately that landed me in a company called Aprimo. We were kind of spun out from Teradata, and I had an opportunity to step up and say, hey, I really want to take on a broader marketing role. I've been doing this, and this, and this, and this. And they gave me a chance to really, look at a broader scope of marketing. So with that, I really started to look at the entire life cycle of the customer, really started thinking about account-based marketing in a strategic way. And how do you surround an account, create champions in that account, and, have people who like and trust you, who want to buy from you, who want to promote you, who want to share their story with other prospects and customers and help your company. And so that when I started to really put those pieces together and started to see success there, that was when I was like, all right, now I am going to be very intentional about the next roles I take, how I build out my skill set. What do I need to do to get the CMO role? And it was really more of a factor of I see all these like dots connecting. I see how it all works. I want to be able to have I guess, the title and authority that goes along with it to make those strategic decisions. And I also kind of got it to a point in my career where I was like, I'd rather be the one accountable than be frustrated and feel like I'm just kind of almost in a blame game. So I didn't want to be in that blame game. I just make me accountable. I'll deal with it, but I want to have some control.
Very few people actually vouch for that, right? They don't want to step up and take responsibility. So that's tremendous. So how's the CMO life going for you? Like, and and right now you're at Arbinger, but I think you've been a CMO before that as well. So talk us through with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, it's hard. I love it. It's kind of the double-edged sword. The biggest thing that I've noticed in my career as a whole is that most of the time it's the people problems that get in the way of what you're doing. It's not that there's always enough technology out there to help. There's always a way to make something work, but it's the people problems. And so it's something I've been working on over time. I would say my people skills weren't like the gift I was given. But I tremendously care about how people work together and how people treat each other and the why again behind what people are doing and why are they doing it. And that over time has become really important to me. So, after being in the B2B tech world for over a decade and just kind of seeing this mentality of growth at all costs, very cutthroat, I strategically made a decision and said, I'm going to look for something where I really feel like not only do I believe in what the company's doing as a whole, that's going to make a difference, and that the culture and the leadership team is the kind of people that I want to work with every day, that I really feel like I can gel with, that we can, make great things happen together, and that we're going to be a team, that we're going to have a trust factor and be able to be real and honest and I guess accountable to each other as well. And so that was kind of, when I started looking for something new, I said, these are my non-negotiables. Those are the most important things to me. I also want some runway. I don't want it to be this, you've got 18 months to like hit these numbers or else, I want a realistic situation where people really believe in this and there's enough runway to do what needs to be done, whatever that is. And so those were the things that I kind of set up as my non-negotiables, the most important priorities to me in looking for something new.
Wow. It seems like you're there now. Like, this is your spot.
Yeah.
Right.
It feels like it. It's great. It's such a good feeling to feel like you're in the right place and you're making a difference and the work you're doing matters and your team believes in you and, not just the people working for you, but the people working with you alongside you and the owners of the company are managing partners, it makes such a difference when you wake up in the morning and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go tackle this. And even if it's a tough challenge or we've got something to overcome, like we're all in it together and, we have the same desired outcomes and we're going to figure out how to do it.
I was going to say, it's so powerful working for a company where you're that aligned with this purpose and you're gelling so well into the culture. Like, that's phenomenal. And to be very honest, I've been wanting to have this chat since you joined Arbinger. And, I really appreciate your LinkedIn post on shifting mindsets. And I just wanted to have an opportunity to dig in deeper with you. So let's do some level setting here. And how would you differentiate between an inward and an outward mindset?
Well, I could pull up our definitions, but I'm not going to. I'll just kind of off the cuff say when we're inward, we care more about ourselves. We care about how we look or how people see us, or, we go into what we call these boxes where it's like, I deserve, or I'm better than, or even seeing yourself as worse than other people. And that causes problems. You're putting yourself first. And therefore, every decision that you make, every action that you take, it's really about you. Even if you subconsciously, right? Even if it's just like you don't have the confidence. And so you're kind of in this like worse than box, it tends to become a problem. Whereas when you have an outward mindset, the idea is that you see people as people. You understand and try to get to understand their problems, their pain points, how you're impacting them, what their desired results are. How can you help them to achieve the bigger outcome? You're putting, other people's needs first, but also the bigger picture, this desired outcome first, over your own ego, your own problems, your own desires. And, in life, like I've just learned, it's not just a business thing. In any relationship, marriage, with my kids, my parents, my family, my siblings, my friends, when I'm in it for me, it doesn't feel as good, and I'm usually not as happy, and all you're doing is having these expectations and being let down most of the time. So when I put it into a business sense too, it's like, how can we work together to achieve this result? It feels so much better and it's more enjoyable along the way, but people know, like when you're in it with them, and they're gonna most of the time reciprocate too, and it's usually a win-win. So just kind of the juxtaposition between those two ways of being and how you're approaching things, your
But
mindset.
do you also feel like it's limited to just leadership as just getting an outsourced mindset, and it's just a general transformation of the org? Because I want to connect the dots with what you said earlier, which was growth at all costs, and now it's about efficient growth, and recognizing growth is always going to be on, but how can you really be real with it? And you also said about you're becoming a people's leader, and I also want to just see how does this get limited, because a lot of people might be thinking, hey, it's a leadership thing, they need to do it for us, it's not my role yet. But how do you define it, or how would you explain this part?
Yeah, I mean, again, there isn't like this is a right answer and this is a wrong answer to this framework. But just to put it in context of like Arbinger and the products that we have, one of the things that we have is this product called Outward Inclusion. And that's really about creating a culture of inclusion and belonging and getting more to the heart of just understanding people, also understanding the biases that you bring to the table, understanding ways that you might be, I guess, like fundamentally judging somebody else unfairly just because of your past, your history, the things that you were taught to believe. And that's everybody. We all have biases. We all have experiences that have shaped us and then therefore shaped some sort of a mindset or decision about things that we even again subconsciously will bring to a new situation or relationship, and it's part of like kind of like again, fight or flight instinct. And so knowing that and understanding that for each person in the workplace can really start to break down those walls and those barriers and silos. And again, as a whole, if you want to hit in a stride where you're having more efficient growth, things that create inefficiency are things like turnover, people not giving their best, people not, really showing up and giving 100%, people getting in the way of other people because whatever, reasons they have, whether it's they're trying to climb the ladder, they want to look better, they want the promotion, or again, people who aren't engaged, people who are quiet quitting, people who are just showing up to get the paycheck. those are all things that get away in the way of efficient growth. That growth at all cost mentality and treating people like objects, you are not going to get the most out of people. They know they're being treated like an object. They are just a way of getting something done to serve somebody else. And when people give their best, it's when they believe in it, when they are passionate about what they're doing, when they feel like they belong, that their work matters, that they're making a difference, that their skills are being used. And so, yes, like you were asking about leaders, there's a saying I hear it a lot: people quit bosses, not companies. And it's like, yeah, your leadership team does matter. Your manager does matter. How they treat you matters. You can have teams within a company that are performing really well and teams that aren't. And it's not always just the manager, right? But it's a big part of it. It's how they're being led. It's how they're made to feel. It's how they're being seen. It's how they're being treated. And also how they're being held accountable. There's different ways to approach it. And so, having the right tools, having the right mindset, it really makes a difference when you're trying to tap into any sort of sustainable change and results.
Yeah. I was thinking while you were saying it, like it would make such a huge difference. And even if you're looking at the executive side, your executive strategy alignment, your go-to-market alignment, being, collaborative and inclusive, and just not there, but just all across the organization, such a powerful thing. How much of, I don't know if there's a percentage that you could give, that what kind of percentage impact does mindset bring into your growth?
Yeah,
journey?
there's a great McKinsey study out there, and they just refreshed it last year. It's 4x increase in desired results when you transform mindsets across the organization.
Wow.
4 times. Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, and there's such a huge opportunity for the ones who are missing out on it, right? Like they're just not recognizing that what kind of impact this can bring. Like, but how if anybody does want to, what would be your quick tip on just looking at what does a transformational journey look like? I'm sure it's just not once
Yeah,
and
I
done.
mean, some of it depends, I think, on where you're starting and size of organization, all those things. But there's different ways you can start with Arbinger, but we typically start with a 2-day workshop on developing an outward mindset. We have a leadership component to that, which is, a separate offering. So ideally, you start with the leadership team and then you kind of work your way through the organization. But we've had many organizations that start, with one internal department. You're seeing those results, and then you bring in the leadership team, or it might start as a DEI initiative. But when you start to see this impact of this outward mindset, changing your mindset and how people are treating each other and how they're working together better, and you're starting to see these silos break down and, results start to happen, just from that inclusion workshop, it's like, this is changing our culture. Let's make it intentional and then move to the leadership team. But again, we've got different types of workshops for each of those different areas and materials that go along with them. And then we've got online sustainment tools and workbooks that are part of the training. So it's like you make it your own. Once you understand it, once you've immersed yourself in it, you've done the training, there's all sorts of different tools and online sustainment. We also have coaching, intervention, like times we can come in. We'd like to do 1 QBR or 1 half-day minimum every quarter with the leadership team, just to make sure this is like catching hold and talk through challenges. So, we will customize packages, but the core of it is these workshops and these tools and really getting immersed in it and learning how to use them and then making them your own.
So while you're at it, I'm sure you've got many success stories, and I'd love for you to share some with us. And just at a high level, something that comes to your mind, some of these initiatives that have the impact they've created. So just to keep the inspiration going for our listeners, how would you kind of bring some forward?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'll say, like, again, this is something that has changed people's lives personally and professionally. We for the most part, our focus is on professional environments, but it's everything from like we're working with Pearl Harbor right now. We're working with different groups within the military and helping with things. But we are also working with different police departments. One of our biggest success stories is the Kansas City Police Department. And now they went from having tons and tons of complaints, all sorts of just problems up and down, by we all know like a lot of the things that go on in these, police departments. We've seen them on the news, but to zero excessive force complaints, which saved the department over $3 million a year, 10 times more guns and drugs recovered because people were cooperating. And it was all this change in mindset, how we approach situations and help. And the Major Chip Huth, who was the head of that department, now works at Arbinger and is working with different departments across the country. But we also have a lot of corporate examples as well. And it's everything from companies being in situations where they're restructuring and needing to cut like hundreds of millions of dollars and starting with saying, okay, well, let's start with layoffs, right? Which is like the most logical, and they're looking at the layoffs and they're like, well, this is only going to get us 10% of what we need to cut. Is it really the layoffs? And so when people started sitting down and talking through like the challenges that they're running into, what are the blockers for them to actually hit their numbers? What are the things holding them back? They ended up coming to the conclusion that layoffs weren't the answer. There was some restructuring that needed to be done. Some people had to give up their title and move under other departments or refigure how they were getting their work done. But we've seen companies be able to cut $100 million in expenses with zero layoffs and then go on to have huge growth numbers, and again, this is across the board. This is a lot of different types of companies. We've worked with pet food companies. We've worked with financial services companies. We've different types of corporations. So, it's really, again, it's back to like what I love about this is it's fundamental. It's a universal thing. How our mindset drives everything.
There's no limitation to industry or the use case, really. It's really designing it, customizing it to the situation. And I wish, like with the current situation going on with the layoffs and everything, like I really hope that more companies can take you guys up on this one and can actually learn and at least get through this as a basic orientation. What impact can we generate from here, even if they're a little hesitant? But I think there's such a huge opportunity. Like it's just a huge miss if they're not.
I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot here is people are usually the potential. They're usually where you're going to find the turnaround in your business is your people. They have the potential to help you get where you need to go. It's, are you tapping into it? So, layoffs are not usually the answer, but I think too many companies have just gotten to the point where they've waited too long. They haven't identified the problems soon enough. Also, in a growth at all cost mentality, a lot of the times it's like, we'll just hire a whole bunch of salespeople and then we'll hit our numbers, right? And
haven't we heard that many times? Marketers have heard that a lot, many times.
Yeah, and then marketing can give us some more pipeline because we just hired all these people, right? And again, that's why I'm here, is because how many times have I heard that? And I know that that's not the answer. And like
you've worked for so many progressive brands. You've been leading these functions at so many of these progressive brands that really had a flavor, and you can represent this statement. And I think you can own it. So we love that. What would you say to someone who wants to learn more about the outward mindset? Like, is there some advice on how they can go about it? Or how to get the ball rolling?
I mean, first of all, check out our website, although it's under construction and hoping to be relaunched early April. Really working on cleaning up that messaging. But we also have several books. One is called Leadership and Self-Deception. There's another one called The Outward Mindset. And then there's another one called Anatomy of Peace. And I would recommend starting with Leadership and Self-Deception. I think it's the most logical kind of flow and then going through in the order I just mentioned. But they're all good. They all stand alone. But that one I feel like kind of gives the context and sets everything else up. So it's a great way to get started. Definitely. And check out the resources on our site too.
Great. Thank you so much. That's great. And we're coming up on our time. So what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn. So LinkedIn/Lisa Sharapata.
Got it. Lisa, thank you again. It was great learning more about you and the mindset needed to drive results. I think there's tons of goodness that you've shared with us. I hope we can absorb that and we can take the advantage and keep moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Madasar. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Growth. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow along on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. This podcast is brought to you by Mobile Live, a team of digital experts specializing in designing experiences, building products, and scaling technology. For more episodes of Behind the Growth, please visit mobilelive.ca/podcast.